Coming up on today's episode.
Look, do you know what? It's a bit of both in this case, because there is a task force. There is a Consumer Affairs task force that is out there making sure that properties meet with rental minimum standards. And they are literally going to open for inspections and they are checking it out that it meets with rental minimum standards. And if it doesn't, they're going to go into the office of the agency on the Monday and go, this property doesn't meet with rental minimum standards. You need to fix it.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together.
Hey, how you going? I'm Nicky Talbot. I'm from Powerband Electrical, and I'm going to be talking with Jo today from the No BS podcast. I'm so excited today because we're going to be talking about rental minimum standards, how that affects compliance, also compliance checks, and how that affects insurance. So I'm really excited to be talking to you all today, and I can't wait to have you enjoy the session.
Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Aussie finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta. Now, today's episode is for property investors and managers who think compliance is just a box-ticking exercise. The reality is, it's the difference between being insured or being left with nothing. My guest today is Nicky Talbot. Nicky spent 25 years as a property manager, leading departments for major franchises before pivoting into the compliance and rebates world. She's seen firsthand how undertrained property managers are, how much investors don't know, and how new legislation is about to change the game for every landlord in Victoria. She's now the director of Powerband Electrical, a business that helps property managers and landlords navigate compliance, rebates, and minimum standards without drowning in red tape, turning scary legislative changes into clear, manageable steps. So, Nicky, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jo. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you because I feel like we chatted the house down in our pre-recording interview, and it was like I'm learning so much at the same time, and I'm like, yeah. Come on the podcast and say it all again.
Just repeat what you said.
Yeah, it's like, do you remember exactly how you said it? Fantastic. Come on the show. No, but it's honestly one of the most interesting discussions I've had because on the show we always interview, a lot of buyers advocates, mortgage brokers, and everyone has great insights. But I've never had someone who's had the experience of property management. Like 25 years is huge in that space. It's a long time. And I love when I have someone with a lot of experience because you've literally seen so much change in this industry. For 25 years, you've gone through GFC, you've gone through downturns, ups, COVID.
Gone through no internet.
Gone through no internet.
Started in real estate with no internet.
Oh my God, so people coming into the office to hand in their paycheck, their rent checks in person.
That's exactly right.
Oh, and that's what I love, right? Because you've seen the industry from such a different perspective to so many of us who joined the industry when realestate.com was already here. What I want to get into today, and part of like what you talked about was compliance and the regulation. And I know this is a dense topic. So those of you who are thinking, oh no, legislation, compliance, I don't want to hear it, but we're going to make it fun and we're going to make it interesting. And Nicky has a way of explaining this that's going to make it sink in your head and make you rethink how you're actually managing your properties or how you're actually doing your job as a property manager. Nicky, let's go back to the beginning. I've mentioned 25 years. It's a long time. Now, what led you into the world of real estate originally? And what was that, career like for you?
Well, that was a complete mistake. I was never supposed to go into real estate. I was going to be a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
I'm now a psychologist, mind you, with real estate.
A property psychologist, if you will.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But I actually fell into real estate. I was doing a temp reception it was called at the time, VIP Investment Properties in Collins Street, way back when I was 22, I think I was.
So like last week. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. Last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few kids later, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. And they sent me out. And now remember, I was a temp receptionist. So temp being the word and receptionist being the word. No license, had no experience in real estate, never done it before. I was there to answer phones.
Yeah.
And they sent me off to this mansion in Toorak, put me in a taxi. And they said, go and have a look at this property and just let us know what it's like when you get back. And I went, all right, no worries.
At that age, it's like, yeah, tell me where you want me to go. I'm off the phone.
So I'm in this mansion in Toorak, marble staircase, like both sides of the entranceway. It was one of the most impressive houses I've seen. And here I am just walking around. just having a look, have no idea what I'm doing in this incredibly wealthy property.
Wow.
Anyway, jump back in the taxi, go back to the office, and I went, that place is beautiful. What was I doing? And they're like, you just did a routine inspection. I said, I did a what now?
What?
You did a routine inspection. I said, what's a routine inspection? So then they told me what a routine inspection was about. How can I do that more often, thinking that real estate was all about routine inspections and just going into these beautiful houses and wandering around, not knowing that property management was what it is. And that's how I fell into it. Literally by walking through a house.
It's funny how you say so much of real estate is like this. I feel like it's because it's people, right? Such a people-driven industry. And I was very similar when I got into real estate. I rocked up for the receptionist role. And the boss at the time said, have you thought about sales? I'm like, I don't really know what a real estate agent is. She said, you sell houses. And I'm going, oh, it sounds fun.
Yeah.
And she said, you know, you're well-spoken. Why don't you go for a job and go for your license, come back and be a real estate agent? And literally I fell into it. I was meant to go to uni, as I said earlier. Yeah, no. And it never leaves you. I've left. I've left the industry and I've come running right back.
Yeah, yes, I've left 5 times and I've come back.
Yeah, there's something about it.
I'm addicted to the adrenaline that is within real estate, but I also love pleasing people and helping people. And you're dealing with somebody's biggest asset and then somebody's home. So you've got emotions are running wild no matter what. And moving house is the most stressful experience in your life.
100%.
So, yeah, it was, for me, leaving and doing anything else was
out of the
boring.
question. Yeah, boring as. And it is boring.
Yes.
So boring in comparison, because it's such a fast-paced environment and things change like that.
Oh, so quickly.
And, you know, it leads me to the next point, you know, because you mentioned that there was a turning point, right? So, like, when you realise that, and I think your story is perfectly aligned to this, where compliance wasn't being handled well. Apart from back then where you probably didn't know, you know, you're new in the industry, you probably didn't know that was very non-compliant, it just was fun. But what was that aha moment where you go, this isn't right? Because you've been doing property management now, you know, you've learnt a lot. What was that moment for you?
I think the biggest moment for me to step out of property management, and I've technically been out of property management now for 2.5 years, which is the longest I've ever been out of real estate.
True.
I was, you know, looking after 2 different offices, had 1,800 properties, 17 staff, and what I was finding was we weren't getting enough information about what compliance was. So we'd gone through lockdown, we had all the changes, we'd come out of lockdown, but we still, as a property manager and as the industry, I don't think anyone was given enough training on compliance, on what is involved in a safety check, a gas check, an electrical check, a smoke alarm check, and then minimum rental standards just got left behind because that wasn't compulsory. And there's so many concerns, I think, that I had that I went, well, these safety check companies are doing the wrong thing by property managers because they're not doing the checks according to legislation.
Wow.
And I went, well, how can I help? I didn't feel I was helping anymore. I'd nailed property management to such an extent that I didn't feel there was anything more that I could do.
Yeah,
and
like
I wanted to be able to help still, but help more property managers than just my team in the office. I was actually helping a safety check company set up their business in the back end, hilariously, whilst I was in property management. And I'm going, no, we need this. No, please don't do that. No, I don't want that on the quote. No, hang on. This check you can't read it. It's confusing. Can you make it more mainstream? Can you make it clearer? So I was giving them all of the operational experience in the back end that as a property manager we needed to see.
Of course.
And then they're like, well, why don't you come work for us? And I went, no, I like property management too much. I'm not going anywhere.
That's it, running back.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Took him 2 years to convince me to leave property management and go and work for their company.
That's unreal.
So that's what I did for a while. I worked for a different safety check company. And then I found out that there was more changes coming in, being the energy efficiency standards. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to flip the real estate world. But not only that, there's another 7-star rating that's coming in for the sales world. I'm sitting there going, nobody knows about this. How can I help? And that's when Tim and I got together, who started up Powerband Electrical, and he was talking about the rebates. And I said, well, hang on, are the rebates going to be available for the energy efficiency? What can we do? And that's how it started. And I went, well, now I can see how I can help.
Yeah, it's like you had that clear path of
Absolutely.
that's the gap.
So I'm like, I knew how I felt as a property manager, getting dodgy reports, having not getting a report for maybe even 6 months, or the company going back and doing the check twice in a year when they shouldn't have, and then charging for it, or going and doing something and not actually completing it correctly, or doing the check incorrectly without servicing the appliances. And I mean, this needs to be done properly. Property managers need to know what is involved so that they can then feel empowered
to actually
to have the knowledge behind them, not get fear-mongered by safety check companies into going, you must do this. It's like, no, that's not the way that it should work. You should educate, explain, give them the information so that they can then give the information back to their owners, and then they can rebut renters' concerns and maintenance requests and demands. And so that's where I went, right, this is how I can help.
And the thing is, like, a lot of us, like, who own property or investments don't really know about this. It's not really talked about. And I totally hear you. Like, I've known a lot of property managers in my time. They're fantastic at what they do, but I think this part lets them down a lot unless they've worked with you previously, right? And this minimum rental standard stuff or the energy efficient and legislation changes, they happen so often that it feels like the goalpost is always shifting. That's why I feel like what you're doing is actually so important, not only like for our listeners today, if you're a landlord at the moment and you're tuning in or you're thinking about becoming a landlord, these are the things you're going to have to come across, you're going to have to deal with. And if your property manager doesn't know about them, at least listen to this episode and get in touch with someone. And I'm sure you work with both landlords directly.
Absolutely.
And
yes, I do. I do investor webinars and evenings and all sorts of things just to help investors as well. So it's not just through property managers, it's through anybody. Anybody can get advice anytime they like.
Oh, well, we'll make sure that you plug into our newsletter. When you've got those webinars, we'd love to let our listeners know about it. Perfect. Because that's super important. I'm not going to stress that enough. So, Powerband Electrical, right? Like you told us how it came about and the problem you're solving for these owners, which I think is awesome. Not only owners, but you go and do now training with property managers.
I sure do.
So how did it transition from I want to help to now I train and now I'm spreading that message, that word far and wide?
Do you know, when we first started Powerband Electrical and the minimum rental standards, what Tim and I thought we were going to do was minimum rental standard checks and rebates and be able to help in the rebate world. But when it started, I was just ringing agencies, chatting to them about rebates, say, hey, would you like me to come into the office? I can explain to you what rebates are. We can have touch on minimum rental standards and the energy efficiency changes that are coming in, which were supposed to come in October of last year, but were then deferred until March of next year. No, the year after, 2027. And as I was going into each office, it became more and more aware how uneducated property managers were. Not that they don't know what they're doing, but it's the fine things. So it's details about locks. For example, what's a dead latch? What's a dead bolt? What's a dead lock? What's a key entry, key exit? Just the current 15 minimum standard points that have been out since 2021 have never really been fully explained to a lot of property managers, or it might have been explained, but because there's so much information, a lot of it gets lost along the way.
Oh, of course.
And then if you're not a trade or if you're not experienced in, a certain facet of the minimum rental standards like mold or structural
defects, things like that.
Absolutely. Then you can't expect a property manager to know. And that's what I was finding, that they just didn't know enough. So it went from me doing a chat about rebates to them being, I've got time. Do you want me to spend some time? We can go over the minimum rental standards. What would you like to know? And then it went from there to talking about the legislation that's coming up. All right, let's talk about the November legislation that's coming up now.
Yep.
And then it was, by the way, did you know that smoke alarms now have to be serviced by a suitably qualified tradesperson? Like, what? What are you talking about? All right. Okay. All right. Let's talk about that then.
Yep.
And so it just kept morphing into the next thing and the next thing, where I felt that there was a gap in their education. I went, well, all right, what can I do? What can I do to plug that gap and to help?
Yep.
And then we were asked if we could do the smoke, electrical and gas checks.
So now it's evolving.
Oh, I don't want to. Yeah, of course we can. No worries, because I knew how much work that was going to take to set up. So then I stepped back from talking to agents and really explaining everything about the rebates and everything else. And I set up the safety check side of things and, designed fantastic reports that are super clear, easy to read, with amazing photos that you can actually see, rather than these tiny itty bitty tiles that you have to then enlarge on the page and the PDF, and you can't even see it, and you have to take a photo of it and then try and enlarge that. It's ridiculous. Anyway, from there, I didn't really ever try to sell the safety checks. I was still trying to talk to people about the rebates and the energy efficiency. And then it kind of morphed again, because now people not only want to learn about the energy efficiency, the rebates, the new legislation, then the new legislation that's coming in 2027, as well as in November. And then I joined forces with Leah Calnan, who's phenomenal. And we've then gone all over Victoria, and I've joined her training sessions, and I've talked about rebates and minimum rental standards. And then I started talking about insurance. And then everyone's like, wait, what? So it morphed again. It
just keeps going.
It just keeps evolving.
But that's the best part about when you set up a solution, right? You start solving one problem, and then you find another problem within that problem, and then it keeps kind of evolving and evolving until you kind of land with, okay, so this is now what I do. And to explain the cycle to everyone tuning in, why this episode is important, because you might be thinking, okay, that sounds important, making sure things are checked properly, but insurance is your safety net for when things go wrong. And this is where we're going to tie this all together today with Nicky to explain to you guys, why is this important and how does it impact your insurance when something goes wrong? And I've got plenty of stuff to say about insurance, because it was one of my stints out of the industry. I worked at RACV. So selling landlord insurance. So didn't really leave real estate, I guess.
And I didn't really ever leave it either.
No, you did it. You thought you did for a minute, and then you went back and you're like, property managers need to know I can be in property management without being in property management. So I love that. I guess for our investors that are listening today, who haven't thought about compliance beyond the ticking box, what's the cost of getting this wrong from an insurance perspective? Let's open that up a little bit.
It's probably the most scariest thing that you can imagine, because this is what's not publicised, and there's no mainstream media discussions about it. It actually drives me insane, because I'm one person trying to get this information out, and all I want to do is help owners get where they need to be with their properties, so that they are fully insured and fully covered, because the insurance policies changed. When the compliance came in and properties had to meet rental minimum standards, insurance policies also changed, and they now state that it must meet your states, and I'm saying in italics here, as in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, your property must meet with the state's rental minimum standards, or your insurance will be void.
That is the key line.
Void. Denied claims. You won't be able to claim if it's proven that your property does not meet with rental minimum standards.
And how important is it in this situation? So for the investors that do their self-managed properties, right? So they, some of you have chosen not to have a property manager managing your homes. You want to do it yourself. This is a lot of risk you're taking on if you're not following it. That's one part of it. But then the second part is, what happens if it's one of these property managers that they have and you're relying on your property manager to follow this compliance trail? Let's say that they haven't done the correct, rental minimum standards, they haven't done the checks correctly, like you're educating all these other property managers. What happens with your insurance then? Is the onus thrown back onto the property manager, or is it still void?
The onus is then back onto the owner, because it's the owner's property. It's not the property manager's property. It is the owner's property, and they have to sign the disclosure that they are saying and stipulating that, yes, I agree, this property meets with minimum standards. So Most owners have to sign with their landlord instructions. They've got to sign the form that says, there's no mold in my property, the lights are all working, the ventilation is where it needs to be, the locks are compliant, there's what else? The curtains are adequate, there's enough blinds. So they're actually signing off on the 14, 15 key points to say, my property is compliant, here's my signature. It's not on the property managers to make sure that it's compliant.
I'm so glad I asked you that question, right? Because I think a lot of it's natural when you don't do we kind of misinterpret, I feel, the responsibilities of home ownership. So on this show, as you guys know, we talk a lot about acquisition of homes. So like, how do you buy a home? How do you buy an investment? We don't have many episodes where we talk about the management of your biggest asset. In often cases, if you're a serial investor where you do have a portfolio or you're wanting to build one, you have to understand that this is all the stuff that comes with ownership and doing it properly.
Absolutely.
And not getting caught out. Because imagine that you've been paying, like I know a lot of investors, like typical, let's say you've had a property for 10 years. You've been paying insurance every single year. Now on the 10th year, the property's now at an age where you bought it at 10 years old, it's now 20 years old. Things start going wrong. You get this check. Now, all those years of insurance, because everyone always has mixed opinions on whether you should have insurance, it's pointless, this and that. Here's what I say to that. When you've got that protection you've been paying for 10 years, it does pay itself off for one claim. I'm telling you right now, that piddly excess that you pay to cover something that is major, like I'm talking about fires or tenant damage, whatever it is huge. Now imagine paying that insurance policy and failing because you haven't done your actual minimum rental standard checks, you haven't done your compliance with what we're talking about with Nicky today, all for that to lead to void. That would be devastating. For that to come out of your pocket, that is almost a position where you put, and like I'm not trying to make people scared, but I'm really trying to get that, support Nicky in her message, because I think that is exactly what I want to do here. You are risking that asset that you work so bloody hard for.
And it's your biggest asset.
And then you're going to take a big loss on it because
Correct.
A lot of the time those claims, if it's big enough, it's hundreds of thousands. That property that you've kept to grow, to maybe be your retirement plan, or maybe it was going to be, some money that you could take out to use for yourself, is now compromised.
Exactly right. And it's so easy, and this is what I guess one of my bugbears is, it's so easy to get a property to pass minimum rental standards.
Yeah.
Like the minimum rental standards is minimum. Bathroom
Bare minimum.
needs to have a 3-star rated shower head. It needs to have a sink or a basin with hot and cold running water, and a shower or a bath with hot and cold running water, and obviously no leaks. That's it. That's your bathroom, right? That's it. It can have, the vanity can be a bit, skewy, if the drawers can be a bit broken, but it's so easy. And yet to not actually have your property meeting with rental minimum standards, to not do the safety checks. And then once the safety checks are done, if there's rectifications that need to be done, and to not do those rectifications, it blows my mind. And I sit there and I think, all right, you've got no gas at the property. The renter can now claim compensation. They've got no cooking, or they've got no hot water, whatever it might be. Something goes wrong, bang, your property's not meeting with rental minimum standards. Bad luck. The renters can still, compensation claim up against you.
It's just too risky.
Absolutely.
No.
But then there's something else that I learned recently. And now this blew my mind about 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. And I love it when property managers come to me and say, can you please talk about this? Or can you please check this in your checks? Or can you do, and I'm like, yeah, I can incorporate that. Oh, one property manager came to me and said, hey, Nicky, can you please check pressure reducing valves? And I went, what's that?
Yeah, I'm even
and
questioning
I went,
that.
It's the pressure that's coming out of the water from the mains tap.
I love that you're all in. No problem.
I can do that. How? Right, now, I've said I'm going to do it. Now, how am I going to do it?
Yeah.
And then what is it? And what happens? So then I'm researching what it all does, right? Now, if your mains water pressure is more or less than 500 kPa.
Okay, yep.
It's not meeting with the standards.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Now, it's not a rental minimum standard. So this is different, right? It's not a minimum rental standard for the water pressure to be right. But if your water pressure is too high, it'll blow your hot water service.
So is this part of safety checks then?
This is not part of safety checks, but I've now incorporated as part of our safety check
Oh, there you go.
as a free service. That's just what we're doing.
Love it.
Because your insurance won't be covered. So if your hot water service blows, and let's say, for example, here's a good one, right? An apartment building.
Oh my God.
That's like 2-3 levels. So the top floor. So the pressure from the mains there is over 500 kPa.
Yep.
Hot water service blows from top level. It's going to then go to the next level, potentially to the next level.
Yeah.
And it's not just $5,000 or $10,000. You're then looking at $50,000 to $100,000 worth of damages. I'm sorry, but bang, no insurance.
Yeah.
Because your pressure reducing valve wasn't functional and your mains water was either too high or too low.
Oh my God.
So you no longer have insurance on your appliances.
Yeah.
So that's just one little thing that I've only discovered in the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, that you're
The
now.
25 years in property management, I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
So you can see from something little like that, and it costs $250.
But this is why you get professionals like Nicky in, right? Like, and I'm not just saying this, because you're here, but honestly, for me as an average person to manage my investment this way, I don't have time. And not because I'm arrogant about it, like as in I will do whatever I need to do for the property. If my property manager says, hey, you need to go do X, Y, Z, you need to repair this, yep, no dramas. I'll make time and I'll get it done. But when it comes to checking and compliance, it's a very dense topic. Now, if you're working full time, which all of us most, I would say are, when are you going to find the time, especially if you're a self-managed landlord? When are you going to do this?
Exactly right. You don't have the time, but also as a self-managed landlord and as a property manager, do you actually know what's required to be done in every check?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where a lot of people get tripped up because gas appliances, it's actually in the Residential Tenancies Regulations 2021 that gas appliances, which is all of your residential appliances, need to be serviced during a gas safety check. Now, your appliances, your gas heaters in particular, must be serviced every 2 years. So they've incorporated that into the gas safety check. So you're not paying for a service of your gas heaters and stoves and hot waters, but you're also paying for a gas safety check and the service comes in as well, because that is now what's in the regulations. But property managers don't know that. So how is a private owner supposed to know that?
No, and this is exactly why we're helping you get the message out, because I just think that this topic is so important. And one of the things I like to do is kind of bring it to life. Like, do you have an example that you can share or a real story where, where a landlord maybe or a property manager, either one, made this type of mistake and ended up affecting an insurance claim or legal risk?
Well, how about when smoke detectors don't work and the renters die?
Oh my God, that's tragic.
That's the worst one that I can, that actually comes to light is that the smoke detector was faulty, had been checked, but it also was reported that it was faulty, hadn't been replaced. There was a fire and the renters died. This was literally 3 months ago.
That's awful.
So it was on the news. It just breaks my heart when I hear that. And that's obviously a worst case scenario. But that owner doesn't have insurance. And that owner could be up for manslaughter charges. So not only do you not have insurance, it's worse than that. So you've got to look after a house, but you've got to look after it well so that it meets the minimum rental standards, because it is minimum. It's also safety, but there's lots of other ones that you can look at where, if a renter's going to get hurt, and if a renter's going to get hurt and the property doesn't meet with rental minimum standards, they fall down the stairs because the banister rail was loose and it wasn't picked up, or maybe it was picked up and it was reported, but the rectifications haven't been done. They've now fallen down and they've broken their leg.
Oh
that
my
owner's
God.
now not insured. The renter's not insured, but they can seek compensation from the owner. But the owner doesn't have any insurance because the property doesn't meet with rental minimum standards. So they don't have anything, yet they've got to pay all the medical bills for the renter.
I think that example you're sharing or have shared is one of the worst case scenarios.
Worst case scenarios.
That manslaughter charge is it's unfathomable.
Absolutely.
You're trying to do something positive. Like owning property is a great, reward, I guess. I always see property as a reward, right? Because you've worked hard and you've gotten into that space. But it comes with great responsibility And I think part of that responsibility that you have as an owner is making it safe for that person to live in. And when we cut corners or we go, oh, nah, should be right, nah, it'll be fine, I'll do it in a couple of weeks, I haven't got time. This is where the risk comes in. Now, something like and that's a very extreme case, but it's happened. It's a true fact. I remember that.
Yep.
I didn't even realise that was part of that whole safety check and what they were up for. I didn't even know.
So the owners can be charged, and so can the property managers under Section 5 of the Act with criminal negligence if the property doesn't meet rental minimum standards. So it's not something to be sneezed at. It really needs to be focused and attention paid to it. Now, I'm not here to scaremonger. I'm here to warn and to guide, just to get the information out. So,
because you're available, you're here to talk to. It's not like we're coming here and Nicky's like, oh, get checks and or you'll die. It's like, no. Here are all the issues that you could come up with, but you know what? You don't have to do it alone. And This is what you've built, and why what you're doing exists, because there's too much obligation that's on owners, that's on property managers. So getting that education, that message out is super important because, I want to switch gears a tiny bit now. And I think what we've talked about is so important, and we'll come back. But one of the things I want to talk about is the insulation rebate.
Yes.
Right? Because one of the things we talked about was how you help landlords actually save money through compliance. So this is a good little tip that I liked. So let's get into that.
So the other reason I got into this right at the very start was, how can I help owners save money? How can I help renters save money? So it was then all about, right, well, we've now got rebates. What are the rebates going to be? We've got energy efficiency changes coming in. So everything that's coming in for the energy efficiency changes, there's a rebate for. So it's not going to cost the owners much money, if anything, to upgrade. So ceiling insulation is coming in, and there's lots of exemptions. And this is where, like, literally, it's a complete different podcast.
I was like, we'll have Nicky back.
Exemptions, plural. But with ceiling insulation, for example, the rebates are being released next year in February. They're saying it's going to cost around $3,000, right, to have ceiling insulation installed. But the rebates are around $1,500 to $2,000.
Wow.
So it's only going to cost you $1,000, maybe $1,500 to actually get ceiling insulation installed. They're saying 90% of rental properties are either not insulated or under-insulated.
Well, this is the issue with properties when you buy them when they're older, right? Because I always talk about this. I've grown up in a building industry background. My family were builders. And when I see how many standards change, so it's like property built in 1980 was built to code back in 1980. Now, we're in 2025. All of a sudden, that property's not to code.
Well, it wouldn't even matter at the moment, because ceiling insulation, what needs to be installed is an R5.0, whereas what's been recommended for the last 50 years is R2.5.
So
we're a long way
from
it being, and then the price difference between an R2.5 and a 5 is quite extreme. But then an R5.0 and a R7.0 is next level as well. So, new homes that want to have this, now there's 7-star rating, can have your higher insulation, but you've got to pay for it. You've got to, it's premium. But the insulation that they're talking about putting in, and it's very, very stringent, which is actually what I love, because it means the last scheme that there was where houses burnt down and people just, came and joined the industry. As I said, this is a whole nother segment. It's very, very stringent on what gets installed. They have to be fully licensed insulation specialists. They have to be accredited with the EEC, which is the Energy Efficiency Council. And they also have to be a license provider with the Victorian Energy Upgrade Program. And they also have to have been in the industry for 2 years prior. So there's huge rules around it. But for the investors, all you need to know is that it's not going to cost you much money, and it can be done properly and with the right people.
And you can actually have a rebate.
Yeah, there's a rebate for it. So there's a rebate for ceiling insulation, draft proofing, air conditioning, heating, hot water services, because hot water services now have to be heat pumps throughout Victoria. There's been one media release about this. One.
Yeah, and this is the thing about not about knowing your options and doing your research, right? And the fact that you actually do not only this compliance side and, safety check side, but you're now also doing you're bringing the rebates into it. As a landlord or especially when I say landlord here or a property owner, why wouldn't you, engage someone like Nicky for this? Because you're then getting benefits from the sense of, what you can actually claim and upgrade in your home, makes your home safer, makes it better. And is this only for landlords or is it any property owner?
Anybody can get the Victorian Energy Upgrade rebate. Anybody.
Right. So I think we talked about this in the pre-podcast and
Yes.
I had that story, but are these the people that, and now it's illegal, you told me because they haven't come back, but a lot of us experienced, or you would have, door knockers that was saying, do you want to upgrade your shower head? Do you want the weather strips?
Bye-bye. See ya. No longer. No. So back in August of last year, it was made illegal to now door knock and to try to sell rebates and to make phone calls.
Yeah.
So you can no longer just make random phone calls of a night time, for example, go, would you like solar on your roof? We've got rebate for you. Or would you like a hot water? My grandma, for example, suffering from dementia, just before she went into a nursing home, some stranger rang her up. She had no idea what they were saying on the phone. She had a heat pump delivered to her door.
What?
They didn't even install it. They just delivered it and put it in a box.
Oh, my God.
Left it in the box.
That's
She was
awful.
90 years old, and they've left this hot water service heat pump in a box in a driveway. Like, what on earth is she going to do with that? And
No.
she had no idea. She didn't even know who rang her to have it delivered. So that's why it's now illegal, because they were just doing the wrong thing and getting money from the rebate program just because.
Well, I'm going to have to share that story I had because that was unreal, right? That person that came to our home. So we had a door knocker and he said, look, I was in a meeting actually with my co-founder and this was in the afternoon. It was around 6 o'clock and my partner, she answered the door and she's the one that kind of dealt with the situation and she came to the room. She goes, she's such a nice person, my partner. She's so lovely. She'll give anyone the time of day, but she feels bad saying no. And she came into the office and said, I don't know how to get rid of this person. They want to give us stuff. Like, I think they can do the weather strips. I'm like, weather strips?
Laughing evilly right now.
I'm just like, what do you mean weather strips? And then I said to my co-founder, I got to go. And I said, what is it? And she goes, they want to come in and, do the weather strips, which I actually think wouldn't be a bad idea. And I said, yeah, if you're happy with it, let him do it. And I said, but anything else? She goes, no. So I went out there and said, hey, mate, no problem. Yeah, do the weather strips. And he goes, oh, okay, I can also do the shower head. And I said, no, absolutely not. I don't want anyone touching the shower head.
I like my shower, leave it alone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, don't stuff with it. And if I want to do something about it, I'll do it. You're not touching it. Are you a plumber? No. Right. So I didn't say that I wasn't that rude, but I just said, don't worry about the shower head. And he goes, okay, but it's not going to cost much. And he goes, it doesn't cost anything. I can just do it for free. And I said, yep, that's cool. I don't want it. I like my shower head. So do not touch it. Go back to my meeting, come back. And now my partner, I could hear her going, oh, okay. Yeah, you can change your shower head. And I've gone to my co-founder, I'll call you back. And I said, hey, didn't we talk about this? Why are you now pressuring her to say yes to your shower head? We do not want the shower head changed. And he actually, like a toddler, he stomped his foot and he goes like that. And I've gone, mate, and I said, you're not a plumber. I said, you are not a plumber. You are not touching it. I've said no. Okay, you can do the weather strips. That's it. And we're happy with that. And he goes, I can get commission from this. Like literally, I will just change the head.
There it is. I can get paid to change your shower head, take a photo of it. Oh, and if you don't want it, I'll just change it back again.
That's exactly what he suggested to me, right? And I said, what, so you can not earn your commission? Absolutely not. I'm not into that. And I said, you earn it. If you sold it to me and you put on a bit of a show, maybe I would have been convinced. But, you didn't try. So, no, I'm not just going to give you commission. I don't care. I don't want it touched. And then he threw all the rubbish from the weather strips all over the front lawn and left.
It's just disgraceful.
Yeah. And I said to my partner, I'm like, whenever you get that, just politely say, oh, look, we're not interested. Thank you. And I said, you don't have to feel bad or just come and get me and I'll say no.
And that's why it's now been, outlawed. You're not allowed to do it anymore because there were too many experiences like that by people, by you, by my grandma, that had the pressure put on them for whatever it might have been. And that's because they were getting money from the rebate program for it.
Yeah, that's right. And it's shocking to me that is the experience that we're leaving people. So I couldn't get over that. And then when you told me it was illegal, I'm like, woohoo. It's the best thing that happened because I think a lot of us, and why I shared that story was I think we're not alone. I think all of us went through the rebate drama of, the thing is, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I'm not saying it's negative, but the way it was being pressured onto you of
Exactly
an
right.
evening after work, you're tired, you're cooking dinner, managing kids, family, whatever. And it's like, can we just come and do this? And it's like, right now?
No.
Like, no, but I would like it. Not yet.
Yes.
It's like, oh God, okay. So it's important, and that's why I wanted to ask. Nikki, I love this conversation with you, and we're 100% going to have you back, but I can't let you go without going into our favourite or our fan favourite segment, which is Reddit Real Talk.
They're brilliant.
All right. So for those of you that are new to the show, this is a segment where we pull real posts from, the Oz Property Chat in Reddit. And some of you actually submit these to us for us to read out on the show. So shout out to Matt and Nicole for sending these 2 examples in. I really love these. So let's go with the first one. This is from Oz Property Chat. This poster says, I keep getting these emails forwarded from the property manager to engage this company to do a compliance check on the property that has been tenanted for the last 15 years with the same renter. The emails seem like they're spam. They're trying to drum up fear that if I don't engage them, I'll have the doors kicked in by a bunch of task force inspectors. Do you really need to engage a company like this now in Victoria? It just seems like another money grab. Or are there legitimate benefits to having them do the checks? The forwarded letter mentioned task force, minimum standards, and even anonymous tenant tip-off websites. So this is part of what she received in this letter. Let's unpack. What's your take on this kind of messaging? Is it fear-based or fair warning?
Look, do you know what? It's a bit of both in this case, because there is a task force. There is a Consumer Affairs Task Force that is out there making sure that properties meet with rental minimum standards. And they are literally going to open for inspections, and they are checking it out that it meets with rental minimum standards. And if it doesn't, they're going to go into the office of the agency on the Monday and go, this property doesn't meet with rental minimum standards. You need to fix it.
Well,
And then not only can the renter be fined for false advertising, depending on what the price is as well, the owner can be fined for not meeting with rental minimum standards. It's an
Holy crap.
$11,800 fine that an owner can be fined, and there's a $1,000 fine that an agency can be fined for it not meeting rental minimum standards. So it's when I read the script last night, mind you, I actually laughed because I thought it was hilarious that it's not fear-mongering. It's actually real.
Yeah.
There is a task force out there. You must. I can't impress you on this enough. It's a legal requirement to have your smoke detectors checked every year now by a suitably qualified, right? The word is suitably qualified tradesperson. And it must have the gas and electrical checks done by licensed tradespeople. They can't be apprentices. It can't be just your Joe Blow who goes, oh yeah. But they've also got to have, now this is what trips people up, those tradespeople, if they're doing the safety checks, need to have the right insurance to be able to do safety checks. And if they're a gas specialist, they need to be registered and licensed to be able to do the safety check. It can't just be a plumber. It can't be a gas fitter. Actually, they need to have a proper license for it.
So is this something that your business also helps with? Like as in when you're sending out these trades, like do you send anyone out or work with anyone for that?
All of our guys that we work with are all of our own employees.
Amazing.
Yes,
so they're actually, you know that they're doing
our
it.
Employees. So we know what their qualification is. We know where they are. We can schedule them. They come into work. Of course, they call in sick. Okay. But they're not subcontractors.
Yeah, so they're actually like employees of the business.
They're employees of the business.
That's a huge win in my opinion, because now it's not just that you're like, oh yeah, we're connected with these people and they're subbies. It's no, we know who they are.
Exactly right.
They're meeting to our standards.
You don't use subcontractors because you can't guarantee what their quality is going to be.
So true.
The way they're going to treat your home and the way they're going to treat your renters. So it's so important. So that is very true and very correct that yes, as a task force, there actually is a task force, and you legally have to do your compliance checks.
Around. So I think one of the things like that I want to kind of ask here is, do you think that landlords are justified in feeling skeptical when they get this, or is it more of a wake-up call that they need?
Again, both.
Yeah, so you'd say
they can be skeptical because there are some safety check companies out there that'll do your electrical check in under 10 minutes and they'll do your gas check in under 20 minutes. And so they're like, well, why should we pay for that service when we're not getting the right thing done? So it's both.
Yeah, so it's like they're justified in their skepticism, but then it's like, do your research. So it's like you've got the alert. You don't have to go with this company because they've sent you a letter.
Correct.
Now you can actually go and research what companies,
Exactly right.
like Powerhouse.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And this is like, lastly, how would your team at Powerband like approach someone in this exact situation? Like, would you have sent that type of letter straight up, or how do you kind of get the message out?
So the way I get it out to, I guess, your investors is social media.
Yep.
I don't approach investors, one-on-one, because a lot of the time they've got their own people, they've got a property manager. So I let them know in all of my social media. We've got, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I actually spend no time on them. I just post. That's it. That's all I actually have the time to do. But then when I'm talking to property managers, then they're actually letting their owners know who they recommend to use. Now, they might have 2 or 3 safety check companies that they use, for example. But I'm always here if an investor actually wants to ever reach out, ever have a conversation. We have got lots of private investors that have anything up to 10 properties, for example, that they manage themselves. And we do the checks for them. And I'll sit there, I'll spend an hour on the phone with them and just chatting with them and going, right, this is what you need to do. This is this, this is that. But the other beautiful thing about that I think, which benefits everybody, is that being a fully licensed estate agent, as I am, and a property manager of 25 years, when they've got a problem, who do they ring? They don't ring Consumer Affairs. They ring me. I will spend hours on the phone with property managers and owners talking over problems, talking about what happens in this scenario, what happens with this rent increase, what do I do if I need to go to VCAT for this scenario, what about compensation here? And so I'll talk to them about the best way to approach all of those. So it's not just compliance that I do, and it's not just rebates. I'm here to help.
I love it. That's the true definition, I think, of property psychologist. So you are a psychologist.
I'm a psychologist.
Just a different type of one.
Exactly.
I've really loved having you here, Nicky. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. If there was one piece of advice or guidance or a tip that you want to give every landlord or property manager tuning in today, what would it be?
Read the fine print. Know the legislation. Reach out to me at any point in time, but get your compliance done. Know what the legislation is that's coming so that you're aware of it. Know where to get help both financially and educationally.
I love it. Great way to end and wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today
Thanks
with us,
for having
Nicky.
me.
I hope you enjoyed that one. I did.
Oh, brilliant.
Well, for anyone who wants to connect with Nicky or to learn more about her work at Powerband Electrical, all the links will be in today's show notes below. And we will also, for those of you that are signed up to our weekly newsletter, you will get notifications. Nicky, I'm sure you'll share with us if there's any webinars or events that our guys can attend, because we would love to share that information. So make sure that you do. And as I always say, a call costs nothing. Okay, so book a chat and find out what the right advice could save you from. And especially Nicky, she's so approachable. She's so much fun. You'll probably just have a yarn about everything and anything, which is what we do. I always hate having to keep to time because I'm like, yep, okay, crap, I'm running out. So we will definitely welcome Nicky back in a future episode to dive deeper into some of the lesser known risks and compliance tasks. But until then, drop us your feedback and let us know what you want to hear about or who you want to hear from. And we'll see you next time on the No BS Real Estate Podcast.